welcome back to Beyond the Diamond. We're your hosts, Colby Rush and Hunter Broadbent. Remember to follow us on Insta at Beyond the Diamond Podcast and Twitter at Beyond the DIA Pod. Let's get right into today's show.
All right, guys, welcome in. We're going to start off with some MLB free agency news. We had the Corey Kluber signing just happened a few minutes ago. He is heading to the Bronx, along with DJ LeMahieu, who we saw sign back there this morning. 6-year, $90 million deal. Colby, let's hear your take on those signings.
All right, so DJ, I'm surprised he went for 90 million because I know he wanted 110, or it was reported he wanted 110. The Yankees were reportedly offering him 5 for 85. He wanted 5 for 110. So to go down 20 million for an extra year to lower that AAV even more, it's a little surprising. But I guess he kind of probably felt out the market and said, "Oh well, no team's really paying up, so might as well go back to a park where I know I can do well, have success." In the ALE, the pitching is subpar, with some smaller parks with Fenway Yankee Stadium, some domes with Tropicana and Toronto, and then Camden, which he can hit in well too. So I don't know. It's interesting. I like it for them. They definitely need him. He's the best hitter on their team, probably the best hitter in baseball. So
Absolutely.
Great move for the Yankees. Great move for DJ because he'll be like 38 by the time the contract's up. So probably be right at the end of like being able to hit, sustain a little longer. Kluber, interesting because like I said, low risk, high reward signing where we don't know the probably not that much money, probably for 1 or 2 years, if I had to guess, unless it's come out. I don't think it has. And he's above 5 ERA last time he pitched. But I will say he has won 2 Cy Youngs. So, I mean, the ceiling is there. The floor is very low. The ceiling is very high. So he could be that number 2 starter they've needed. He could also be a horrible pitcher for all we know, but it's not a bad signing at all.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of talked about in our first episode a little bit, the state of the Yankees pitching staff was a little rough with all the youth they have going on. I mean, it's Garrett Cole's the obvious number one, but then when you have Davy Garcia, Jordan Montgomery, and such following them, that's not a lot of veteran rotation depth, especially after you're losing Happ, Paxton. Hopefully Severino for them comes back at some point soon. So yeah, it was obviously very clear they needed another veteran presence in that rotation, and Kluber's a lottery ticket. Like you said, it could go great, or he could show shades of the regression he had in 18, 19, 20. It was starting to look rough for him. His stuff was ticking down a little bit, and I mean, 20, he pitched an inning, so you can't even say that much. But it seems like reports have been good from him working out with driveline, so we'll see how that goes. It could go either way, but I like that signing for them. I think anytime, as you mentioned, you can get a 2-time Cy Young Award winner, you have to give it a shot. And for just a 1 or 2 year deal, hard to have a bad move with those. And onto LeMahieu, I mean, look, it's no secret this guy was an absolute monster for the Yankees the last few years. You had a lot of Yankee fans pining for them to sign Manny Machado a few years ago, and not that he's been bad in San Diego by any means, but DJ LeMahieu has been an absolute game changer. The guy just hits and hits. He's very clutch. So good move for the Yankees to bring him back. They got to be happy with how the market played out. He was talking to some other teams, but obviously the state of baseball is so weird right now with finances during COVID. So it worked out good for them. They got their rock in the lineup back there. 6-year, $90 million, pretty reasonable contract for both AAV and length, keeping around for a long time. So both sides can be happy with that deal.
Yeah, I agree with all that. Hey, the Yankees were fooling us, clearly saying they were a poor franchise now, spending all this money on the same day.
Yeah.
So great smokescreen by the Yankees. Gotta love it.
And you get that move, almost looks like it's in retaliation to the Mets. Mets bringing in Francisco Lindor the other day, and we can't forget Carlos Carrasco, another former Indian that still has some potential even as he's aging. I mean, how can you not love that trade? Andres Jimenez, he showed some nice stuff this year, but I mean, you have to give to get. So him and Josh Wolf, two big prospects, and then Ahmed Rosario, he's had a nice little career, but if you can bring in a superstar like Francisco Lindor, that's a move that you have to do without hesitation, especially for a new regime coming into the Mets front office.
Yeah, and I mean, trading away both your other shortstop options shows that even if it's not going to happen right away, you're going to sign him long term because they believe he's the future. Rightfully so. He's a 5-tool superstar. Then an infield besides third base, probably great sign for the future. Hopefully, they got some pitching now with Cookie's gonna. That's a very good signing or trade, I think, because he could be really good. He's still probably recovering from cancer still a little bit with being in remission, but if he can return to his form too, he's a legit pitcher. He could be a number 3 behind Thor and DeGrom for sure.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard not to love that move. I mean, he had a pretty nice year this year. Nothing amazing, but he's on his way back. You look at his resume, he's put up some great numbers. So it's definitely a good move for the Mets, and seems like just the first of many when you add that into James McCann and him. Who knows? They'll probably do more, but the Mets are definitely a team moving in the right direction right now. And as you said, it sure seems like they have every intention of extending him. We know it's no secret that Steve Cohen has the money to spend, and if you can lock up a superstar, you do that.
Yeah, which the Indians have not done.
Indians have not done, but
multiple Cy Young winners.
They just keep growing them on trees there in Cleveland. They got
I wonder where
where
Shane Bieber will go next year.
Oh God. I mean, we can joke about it, but with the Indians' track record, it wouldn't surprise me.
And then I'd probably say, we're in the NL East. I'd probably say the JT Realmuto offer coming out earlier today, 5 years, $100 million, I believe. That where the Phillies, I guess Dombrowski found money somewhere because thought the Phillies were broke.
Yeah, it goes from them looking to trade Zach Wheeler a few weeks ago. You bring in Dombrowski. John Middleton says, "Oh no, we're not going anywhere. We can raise you, Dave Dombrowski, Steve Cohen." So they've made some good moves with the bullpen. Alvarado is a nice bounce back candidate. That guy's stuff is absolutely filthy. So I was a fan of that trade. Archie Bradley, he's a proven commodity in the back end, and Sam Coonrod, he's got good stuff. I know you have mixed feelings about this as a Giants fan, but
I believe he had a 9 ERA last year. I could be wrong. Could be 10. He sucks. Not gonna. He's there's no Giants fan that ever liked him. We were all like, you should see all the meme pages after he got traded. It was like, all right, who's the new Giants player we can hate because he's gone? So we got to hate someone else now.
Yeah, I guess that's my track record of looking at Baseball Savant a lot. You see like all the spin rate on his fastball and curveball, but that's not a beautiful ERA.
Yeah, he may have good stuff. He doesn't know how to use the stuff. So that's an issue. Maybe they can unlock it in him. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. We got Caleb Cotham, new pitching coach there in Philly, coming from the Reds, where they've turned around so many guys. Most notably Sonny Gray after a rough few years in the Bronx. So we'll see how it goes. It's an interesting move nonetheless, even if it doesn't work out. And it was a must.
And then the other big signing, Hendrix, going from the A's to the White Sox, for what was it, 4 years, $60 million?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I think it was like 8. I think it was somewhere around there. It's a great deal. I think it's a little high in it. He was rated by the Shredder, the #1 reliever in baseball. When you want a top reliever and you want to shore up a bullpen for a growing team like the White Sox, who probably the cream of the crop in the AL for a very weak AL this year, you got to get your guy, no matter how much it costs. And with having all those guys on rookie contracts, you can definitely afford it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an interesting offseason for the White Sox, starting the Tony La Russa era 2.0. But you give him another great tool to use in the back of that pen to go along with guys like Aaron Bummer, Jace Fry, and company. I mean, that's going to be a very good bullpen, even after losing Alex Colomé. The window of contention is just opening for that team, should be open for a few years, so it lines up perfectly with Hendrix' contract length. So I was definitely a big fan of that one for Rick Hahn.
Yeah, it's a good deal for them. I think that'll definitely shore up the back end for sure. They just need some help on the front side of the rotation now.
Yes.
It's key.
Lance Lynn was a good start, but there's always more work to be done.
Yeah. And then the other big news this week in MLB was Theo Epstein going into the commissioner's office as a consultant role. What that means, focusing on on-field matters. Now, take that for what you want. Over here at Beyond the Diamond, take that as he will be commissioner in 2024.
I mean, the guy's turned around the Red Sox and the Cubs, so no reason he can't send baseball in an even better direction. It was a big deal, his press conference leaving the Cubs on November 17th. He had this quote to say, "It's the greatest game in the world, but there are some threats to it because of the way the game is evolving, and I take some responsibility for that. Because the executives like me who have spent a lot of time using analytics to try to optimize individual and team performance have unwittingly had a negative impact on the aesthetic value of the game and the entertainment value of the game." So this will kind of lead into our marketing discussion that we're going to have on the podcast today, but interesting quote from Theo there. I mean, he's built these teams on the foundation of analytics, but he's now seen with stuff like Game 6 of the World Series, Blake Snell getting pulled early, a discussion we could have all day. Obviously, an analytically driven decision, and Theo's pointing out that it's kind of getting out of hand and ruining the careers of a lot of good old school baseball people. So, I mean, it's hard not to love what Theo had to say here, and he can bring baseball in a nice direction.
I will say too about that quote, you don't usually hear guys own up to mistakes like that when they cause that big of a renaissance in the game. Not really renaissance, like almost a destruction. But also, I will say, he used analytics, but not to the point where he's not like using the eye test, as we like to say. He'd look at Snell in Game 6 and say, "No, we're keeping him in." Even if the analytics don't say to keep him in, third time through the lineup, I don't care. He's dominant right now.
Mhm.
Like, Theo has that great mix of old school and new school, and that's what's made him so great with the Red Sox and Cubs, and hopefully now with baseball in general, where he and form that basis, but he also uses the eye test and the old school method of, we don't have to follow the rules all the time. Like, we can still go by some of these eye tests and just feeling out how we feel, because analytics aren't always right. We got to know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, obviously they've had a great impact on the game in terms of player development. I mean, going through the minor leagues, players are getting smarter and smarter with the more information they have at their disposal. But it has gotten out of hand with a lot of this stuff because so many traditional baseball minds are being exiled because they're not heavy analytical thinkers. And there needs to be a good balance. And as you said, Theo realized that. You just look at the managers he's had throughout his career, Terry Francona and Joe Madden. Those guys are plenty traditional and use the eye test a good amount. Right down to Joe Madden taking out Carl Edwards Jr. to bring in Mike Montgomery in Game 7 of the World Series. He's going to do what he sees best on the field. And those are the guys Theo has hired as his managers because he thinks, as it should be, analytics are a great supplement to baseball, but shouldn't be the number one rule and law to everything.
Yeah, exactly. And that kind of leads into our marketing talk. Well, first, our marketing talk, because There's a lot of good things baseball does. We can both agree on that. Knows that too, as he's helped develop that. But there's also a lot of things they don't do well, including some of the rule changes that last year that sounds like are going to stay in place this year. Don't sound too appealing to most fans in today's game. One I can think of immediately is the ghost runner or the runner on second starting extra innings. We're not playing wiffle ball. We're not playing a 2v2 wiffle ball with ghost runners. This is professional baseball. We shouldn't be having a runner on second starting a game just to speed it up. It's extra innings is free baseball. There's no better baseball than extra innings. That's a fact. Everyone enjoys that, besides postseason baseball, of course. If you want to do the ghost runner thing, start in once it gets like absurd, like 13th, 14th inning. But even then, you're not going to have those games like the Giants Nationals 18-inning postseason game. Like that could happen in the regular season, but you're not going to have it because you're having the runner start on second. A double automatically game over. Where's the fun in that?
Yeah.
It just kind of takes that out of it.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I mean, it creates so much stress on the managers right out of the chute. And I was going to say, Rob Manfred means well with this rule change. I mean, during this season in the pandemic shortened year where pitchers didn't have the same time they normally would to get trained up, you didn't want guys getting burnt out in long extra inning games. So it's understandable to have this in 2020, but I am definitely not a fan of keeping it beyond this because, as you said, it's not wiffle ball. This is baseball. If you want to save your pitchers a little bit, implement it in the 12th or 13th inning, so the rule can still stand. The games won't go ridiculously long. And I liked how they didn't have it in the postseason because there would be games just like that Giants Nationals one. Or, I mean, who didn't love watching Nathan Eovaldi just go out there and pitch the game of his life against the Dodgers in Game 3 of the 18 World Series? I mean, those are special moments. And a rule change like this really eliminates that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. There's really no other words for it. It's not a good rule. The intent might be there, but not well.
And speaking of rule changes from 2020 that might be sticking around for 2021, we have the 7-inning doubleheaders. So I know that we both aren't crazy about this. I mean, how I see it is baseball's a 9-inning game. You know, it's the strategy is to be used throughout all 9 innings. Teams are used to that. And you have a doubleheader where you're playing 2 7-inning games, your momentum's completely thrown off because it's in the 7th inning. You still feel like you have more time to come back. My grandpa was a longtime high school coach, and his famous quote was always, "The game doesn't start till the 7th inning," just because that's really when everything picks up. And it just encourages starters getting taken out early, more and all that. But again, it's another thing it was understandable for 2020. COVID, there were a lot of cancellations, especially right out of the chute with the Marlins and Phillies games. So you needed double headers to make up for it. And once again, the deal with the pitchers, like I just talked about, they weren't built up to go very long. So you shortened it a little bit. Like, fine, I can live with it for 2020, but it's not something I want to see in years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I will say, 7-inning games, sometimes they're refreshing. Like sometimes they're needed. Just like middle of July or end of July after maybe a 7-inning game here and there. But like having them all the time like they did, or it sounds like they're planning to do, that's not how baseball is. Like that takes away from what baseball is. You can keep the rule fine because it's good to like. I know for us for college, like we have Wednesdays open this year just in case of COVID cancellations. Fine, have days open for doubleheader days where you can have 7-inning games. A rule where you're just gonna have 7-inning games all the time because that's what you want to do to speed the game up. Because that's not baseball. That's.
I mean, and the league was using the 2020 season as a bridge to try out a lot of these things. It was the perfect excuse for them to try to implement a lot of rule changes in response to COVID. And yeah, I mean, some of them like this, people have very passionate reactions on, and just changing the fundamental game that much it's a system shock. And then a rule that a lot of people seem to like, the universal DH, might not be having it. And the fact that we are now basically a month away from pitchers and catchers reporting, and teams still don't know for sure if the National League will allow a DH, that's a tough situation, because that's a game changer. I mean, guys like Marcelo Zuna and Nelson Cruz, with all the power in the world, are sitting out there on the market right now. They don't know, do I have 15 teams that want to sign me or 30? This is something they need to figure out quick, because it's just holding up the baseball offseason finances right now, and it's implementing strategy, and that's the last thing you want to do.
And like what we talked about in episode 1, I'm still all for Bud Black's idea where you have the universal DH up until you takes away all the, adds even more strategy than just having an opener. It makes it a lot more strategical for managers. Their guys, they probably got to love that, because they're going to ride their starters anyway. Guys like Cash might not love that so much because they're going to implement their openers. But I kind of, if they're going to, if they don't want to do the universal DH, at least do like an abbreviation of it. So then you, because that's,
yeah, I'm glad you brought the Bud Black idea up again, because I think that's a really creative one. I like what he's doing with that. So we'll see. Maybe someone will listen to it, maybe someone won't, but I think the more creativity, the better. And this is what we need. We need both sides to come to the table and try to figure out what's best for everybody involved. Speaking of best for everybody involved, expanded playoffs, there's another one that can cause a lot of debate. I mean, yes, those 3-round wildcard play-in series were exciting, but again, in terms of a rule I wouldn't like to see beyond 2020, it doesn't create much incentive for winning the division if everybody has to play in a stressful 3-game series like that. You just need to get into the playoffs, and there should be incentive for winning the division. I mean, in the normal playoff structure, the 1-game wildcard game, sure, it was extremely stressful, but that was a lot of fun to watch, and I think baseball had it perfect like that. So I'm not a fan of expanded playoffs for the long run, especially because it took away all the crucial off days for pitchers to recover, and you saw some guys slow down at the end of the World Series because of it.
yeah, I mean, I'll add on to that. For a division like the NL West with the Dodgers and Padres, probably the top 2 teams in baseball, or 2 of the top like 5 teams to say. It doesn't matter who wins the division; they're both going to be top teams in the playoffs, because this expanded playoffs makes it no need to win the division. Also, I will say, if you go back to 2014 with Bumgarner, in that wild card game against the Pirates, he threw a shutout, and then he went on to have his dominating postseason performance, cement himself as probably the greatest postseason pitcher of all time. You're not going to see that anymore. 1, because pitchers don't throw that much. 2, because that's too many games with not enough off days. There's no pitcher that can throw five games with 2 off days. Yeah. That's impossible. Bumgarner did it. I think he threw 2 games on short rest, if I remember correctly, and then he had came out of the bullpen on short rest too. You're not going to see a guy do that anyway, but it makes it even less likely with even less off days.
Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, too, with the 3-game wildcard play-in series, a lot of the times it's still just going to come down to a 3rd game, which is basically the same as 1-game play-in. I mean, the one with Rick Renteria bringing in basically his entire bullpen before the 5th inning against the A's, that game was pretty wild, but I think it would have been better if it was just a 1-game wildcard, Lucas Giolito going at it, rather than emptying the bullpen to go for it. Sure, it's exciting to watch, but I prefer just the 1-game format for all the reasons we've just said.
I completely agree. And another rule change along those lines that affected the World Series and playoffs in general is the batter minimum. Don't like that. It didn't speed up the game. If anything, it slowed it down, because pitchers are getting tired. They're not used to pitching in high leverage situations for that long, because usually you can go matchups. And you saw with like Nick Anderson, he was struggling at times in the World Series. Cash couldn't pull him because he needed to pitch to 3 batters. And that caused problems for the Rays.
Yeah. I mean, in a normal world, you would think the Rays would probably go Anderson to face Mookie, Aaron Loop to face Bellinger, and then go to someone else after that. But obviously, Anderson had to face all those guys, and as someone that was running on fumes, it was tough because he didn't really have much gas left in the tank, and he was trying to empty out everything there, but it just wasn't happening. So the 3-batter minimum, as you said, didn't really slow down the game much. So I don't see the point in keeping it beyond 2020.
I'll also add having 3-batter minimum with like 0 to 2 off days total. Those guys are going, a guy like Nick Anderson or a guy, any of, not really the starters, but most relievers, those high leverage relievers, they're going every day. They're having to pitch to at least 3 batters. That's that's way too many pitches a day. Even if you're getting through at 1, 2, 3, that's 9 pitches every day. Your arm can't physically do that for an entire month. Like, it's not healthy.
Yeah. All I'll say is thank God that rule doesn't apply to the end of the inning. Like, you can come in with 2 outs and strike the guy out and then you're done. That's the only thing I'll say about that one.
Yeah. That's very true.
And in terms of other 2020 rule changes, I know 2 ones that we definitely don't like. We don't have to spend too much time talking about them because I think we both feel the same way. The in-game video ban, that was bad. I mean, you had a lot of guys, JD Martinez, Javier Baez, Christian Yelich, they all cited it as something that really hurt them as guys dependent on video in-game. So that needs to come back in some form. There have been rumblings that they might want to put it on iPads instead. And then the neutral site World Series that was floated, Manfred had mentioned something he might think about continuing. But the atmosphere of a World Series is second to none, and that's something that needs to happen in home ballparks. It was another thing that just was a reason
The one thing
2020. But
the one thing I will say about the neutral site, if you're gonna do that, do it like March Madness, where you're doing like you're going like ESPN facilities, which this will lead into something else. You're going to like the ESPN facilities, which have I think 6 fields or something, 4 to 6, I believe, and you're just doing like either a tournament or you're just doing the playoffs there. Because then the fans are traveling to Florida. So it's not necessarily a home ballpark, but it's also like that's a fun experience anyway. If you want to go that route. I don't necessarily say you should go that route, but if they're saying let's go that route, fine, then do it somewhere where you can have like some fun with a ton of people and go to like you can go to Disney there too. But I'll also say that Texas field was pretty cool.
Mhm.
We did get to see that. That was pretty cool.
No doubt. I mean, it was a nice stage for the new ballpark. The whole aspect of the bubble, it was a little weird to see fans in a bubble. And obviously, Justin Turner at the end kind of threw that off. So, I mean, who knows? That's with the way vaccines are pretty slow in the country right now. God forbid that's something they have to do again in 2021. They've obviously learned a lesson of what works and what doesn't. So it'll be interesting to see if they have to revert to that or if we can just have a little more normalcy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's gonna be weird for sure. It's not gonna be. They're gonna want it to be a normal season. I think maybe by the All-Star break, hopefully we'll get something of a normal season. But I think up until then, it's gonna be tricky.
Yeah, it definitely will be. So we'll see how it goes. A lot of these rules were stressful to keep in place. You see a lot of the leagues struggle with it right out of the gate and then get more adjusted to it. So hopefully it's not something that MLB has to deal with for too long this upcoming season. So there have been other rule changes that have been potentially discussed. We're not going to go too in depth with them, but I'm just going to list some out. Tell me if there's any that stand out to you that you would like to see or that you absolutely hate. We have the pitch clock, robot umpires, shrinking the strike zone, miking up the umpire. I know that's one that they should definitely do so umpires can know. I mean, fans can know what umpires are reviewing during a replay challenge. And then the creative one of letting the top of the order come to bat in extra innings. Are there any of those that you're a fan of or you just don't want to see?
So I love miking up umpires. I love miking up anyone. That is cool. Fans would get an inside experience, but also because you'd get to see like what the thought strikes, and like maybe there is a bigger deal like behind that with what types of strike zones umpires are having, depending on the. We'll realize. Shrinking the strike zone, that's the tricky one because it's all dependent on the umpire. So I'm not really sure about that one. Letting the top of the order come to bat, I'm not a fan of. That is messing with. The pitch clock one is tricky because I actually introduced this idea to Manfred and got a letter back saying that's a really good idea. We should do that. So I feel a little guilty about that. That I brought that idea up. Maybe you want to make me feel good as a little 7th grader at Zavarian Brothers High School. But it's cool because it's being talked about on national TV. 2, that sucks because it's a horrible rule in hindsight. And it does nothing because pace of play is not that bad compared to what I thought in 7th grade when I had 0 attention span. Robot umpire taking over the world, in my opinion. He's trying to get robots to control how we behave. So no. And then
Yeah, I mean, I don't think pace of play is as big a deal as people think, especially, I hate to compare sports here, but you look at like the last 5 minutes of an NBA game, a very popular sport in its own right. It'll take like half an hour to get through just a couple minutes. I don't think baseball is anywhere near that bad. And just while we're on the subject of comparing sports, Game 6 of the NBA Finals had 5.6 million viewers, and 13.25 tuned into Game 6 of the World Series. So I think that kind of speaks for itself a little bit. I continue. Pitch clock, yeah. I mean, baseball's the one sport that's not on a clock. That's a great story, though. I wasn't sure if you were going to tell it on the pod or not, but it's a great story. But yeah, I mean, it's something I don't feel is necessary. They've experimented with it in the minor leagues. So the hope is just that a lot of the guys coming up into baseball now are used to moving at a faster pace anyway. So we don't have any crazy long delays. But I think when they limited the mound visits, that kind of solved that, because in the 2017 postseason with all the sign stealing concerns, the mound visits were kind of going crazy. So that wasn't the worst idea. Shrinking the strike zone, should definitely speed up the game if they do that. Will it? I'm not sure. I'm going back and forth on it now as I say
slow
that.
it down, honestly.
But you're getting a lot of walks. So maybe expand it. Who knows? That's just almost as out of the box as letting the top of the order come to bat. I'm not on board with that one either. It's just ruining the integrity of the game. And yeah, robot umps, that's definitely something to keep an eye on. But I think it's nice that you can kind of study an umpire, know what his strike zone is like, and you have room for interpretation from every umpire. Are they going to be perfect? No, they never will be. But not everybody has an Angel Hernandez track record. A lot of the umpires, they do a fine job. We might give them some crap, but they do a good job on the whole. So that's not something I feel really needs to come into play.
We can replace that one. I'm fine with.
Yeah, I get you. And before we get into our personal ideas.
So now into our own marketing ideas. So as we saw last week with the NFL, again, not trying to compare sports, but this was very popular for a lot of kids. The Nickelodeon broadcast with the Slime Zone, of course. I know I tuned into that. It was very entertaining, just watching guys run into fake slime, then have Sean Payton actually get slimed at the end of the game. Now, obviously, CBS and Nickelodeon are owned by the same company. I forget what they're called. So that could work like that because you're not taking away viewers from each other because it's all going to the same company. Now, so I've thought of some ways. One, baseball could just straight up partner with CBS. Boom, get actual Nickelodeon. That's harder than it seems because of the deals and all ESPN deals. Two, for Sunday night baseball because ESPN and Disney are owned by Disney.
Yep.
I forget.
Mhm.
Let's have like Mickey Mouse on there. That would be fun. Like, let's get some kids involved in this thing.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea.
I don't know. I'm just throwing out some ideas.
I very much like where you're at there. Then you can even Disneyland and Disney World put in a baseball village to get kids into it when they're visiting there with their parents. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but it's obviously a marketing campaign of MLB's. They want to get more kids involved because, like we talked about with David McKinnon last week, a lot of the younger generation spends too much time inside and isn't focused on sports as guys like us growing up were. So it's a big thing that kids need to be drawn in. And the Nickelodeon broadcast did very well for the NFL. So I love the idea of potentially doing something like that for kids as an alternate broadcast. And yeah, Disney, the possibilities are endless, really.
And I mean, like I already said, the ESPN studios have the baseball field. Boom, tournament right around. Either keep the home run derby, give the guys a few days off, have a 3-day tournament, like what the NBA is trying to do at the ESPN studios, broadcast Disney and ESPN. Fun. Let kids go to the games. Have it like a Cooperstown type where it's kids only. I don't know. Fun.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. And
That
kind of like the
yeah,
Williams
that
games they had a few years ago too.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, look at the Little League World Series. It gets a ton of views because it appeals to kids. Gotta appeal to kids. It's the key to views,
Yes, exactly.
key to content. Put it on
And
TikTok. Live broadcast on TikTok.
that'll get more views than any baseball game ever if you do that. There are a lot of eyeballs hitting TikTok these days. But yeah, I mean, the Little League World Series, another thing that's so good about it is just the emotion. Kids are having fun playing the game, and that's what everybody wants to see. We don't need all this serious hardball. Baseball, at the end of the day, is a game, and people have fun playing it. So that emotion needs to be center stage, and an idea like that with ESPN and Disney and getting the kids involved, it's perfect. It's a great way to get the game to be appealing to a younger generation.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, relating back to just the TV deals with like maybe you get CBS or you just focus on ESPN. MLB TV, you gotta pay $130 to watch baseball. And I've thought about this. I'm willing to pay the $130 if you include a red zone type thing. Not like MLB Tonight, because that cuts to commercials. I want a commercial-free baseball red zone where it is on like if there's an insane bat flip, it cuts to that. Insane home run. Or like say Tatis is up to bat, you cut to Tatis's bat. You cut to Betts making a diving catch, as much as we hate Betts. You no hitter and don't leave the no hitter unless it goes to commercial. Then cut to something else. Cut to a big hit. Just
And
you
don't
gotta
mention
cut
that
back
it's a
and
no-hitter.
right, and don't mention big. Don't even have it at the bottom of the screen. Just cut to it and have the fans figure out why you're cutting to it.
Mhm.
Keep them guessing. But if you can add that aspect to it, that would make $130 a little more reasonable because that adds another dynamic. That adds like now it would be tough because that's all day. You gotta pay those people a lot, whoever's broadcasting. If we get Chris Rose back, that's a thought. I'm sure he'll do it.
MLB Network already has a great formula with MLB Tonight, like you said, but I mean, there's certain problems with it, like it goes to commercials and it's not on every night because sometimes there's the MLB Network showcase games. They got those Friday nights, or they're showing a game, another game that's an exciting one, which obviously it's understandable. People want to watch those games, but MLB Tonight it's just an awesome product. I mean, there's nothing I love more than hanging out late on like a Friday night in the middle of summer, just watching that at like 1 o'clock in the morning. I mean, it's great TV. There's great baseball talk going on. But as you said, it's something that needs to be in play all the time. And if you put that on a streaming service like MLB.TV, that would just be awesome. And to get back to the Chris Rose point, that was a big mistake by MLB Network letting him go. I mean, Rose and Millar with Intentional Talk starting like 10 years ago, that just ushered in the era of allowing baseball players to be themselves and letting the kids play. It's just a show that, first off, it's great baseball talk, but second off, it lets their personalities shine through. And to take one massive part of that equation away and Chris Rose, I mean, it's really unfortunate because him and Millar are an awesome team, and they laid the ground for people like us and people like Carabas and Starting Nine. Having fun with the players is the best way to market the game because it shows that they're human and it shows that they're good guys and it makes them easy to root for. And Intentional Talk started that. And it was just really sad to watch the Chris Rose farewell tour a few weeks ago. That just wasn't right. I know his contract with COVID is tough, but they really should have made that one work out.
They can afford it. They just didn't want it. They're cheap. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Oh well.
And I mean, they're doing things that are detrimental to the game when you have putting people on TV that are complaining about it. May or may not be referring to Christopher Russo here. I'm sorry, his show is entertaining, but it's not good for the game when he's going out there and complaining about Fernando Tatis bat flipping. That's something MLB is trying to promote with the whole let the kids play movement. And you're giving someone a lot of money to go out there and say otherwise. It's just not a great look.
I've never been a fan of him anyway. I don't know. Something about him bugs me.
Yeah.
He's
Outspoken is a word to use.
It's kind of like, yeah, it's kind of like First Take. I just like don't get entertained by it anymore. It's just like, it's almost too scripted.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, with his radio background, these guys just, they want viewers, so they're going to say what it takes to get viewers. And look, I'll be the first to admit, when something big happens, I will tune in to High Heat because it's entertaining sometimes to listen to. But if paying someone like him comes at the cost of letting Chris Rose go, that's just bad, because a happy-go-lucky guy like Rose that's so good for the game, you can't let that happen.
Maybe he'll go on with Pedro and Ortiz and A-Rod. Maybe he'll go with them.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Those shows are amazing.
That'd be nice.
And along the lines of Pedro and Ortiz, this is a big idea of mine, and I have to credit my dad too for having a part in this one. But one thing, MLB has tried to bring in a lot of new fans, but I don't think they've focused enough on their existing super passionate fan bases. Latin America is a huge spot for that. And having some sort of Spanish MLB network, we've talked about different versions of MLB network, but a Spanish one to cater to Spanish-speaking fans here in America and down in Latin America, that would just be awesome. You have personalities like Pedro or Mike Lowell or any of these guys, really. I could go on for days naming names here, but something similar to that is already in place in ESPN Deportes, and that's a very popular network. So MLB can just up their viewership even more and more by having some sort of Spanish version of the program for these regions that are so passionate about the game.
I completely agree. I mean, that's a great point. I wanted to touch on like the passionate fan bases. We talked about all those rules before. It almost seems like the MLB is trying too much on trying to get the new fans, seeing enough on the fans they already have. And with all these new rules and all these changes and doctoring the game, essentially, they're losing those fans, the ones who actually watch the game and make them the money. So doing something like that, where you can get even more of like the diehards, like those the people who speak like the Spanish language in like Latin, those are the diehards. We say we're diehard in America. We don't compare to them. Let's be honest. And so if you can cater the game to them even more, that gets even more of your diehard viewers. And I bet it gets even more than you thought you would get with the modern day viewers. So why not try it?
Yeah, I mean, even if it doesn't work, just try it out for a year.
Yeah.
Those markets are just, they're so good. And you've seen they've started to a little bit with stuff like the Puerto Rico game, and they had the games in Mexico. So just look at those fans. They're going crazy. They're so much fun to watch. Or two examples I'll throw out there. The video a few weeks back of Ronald Acuna playing ball in Venezuela, just like a pickup game, doing a big bat flip. That did not get nearly enough play on social media as it should have. That was an awesome moment. It's just showing a superstar like that having fun with the fans in his home place. I mean, that's awesome. If
Not gonna lie, I haven't seen that video,
and
which
that's
just
the
shows the
problem right
problem.
there. A big baseball guy like you would probably love it. And here we go again comparing sports, but let's be real. If there's a video of like LeBron dunking a basketball in Akron, Ohio, that's going to be all over social media, especially Instagram, because the ESPN handles are very favorable of basketball. But anyway, I digress. That didn't get enough play for something that fun. And my second example is the WBC. That is amazing. That is baseball at its best right there. These guys are playing with so much emotion. There's moments like the Javi Baez tag from the Molina, throwing the guy out. All of the Latin America countries were just so much fun to watch. The brand of baseball they brought to the table, the fans going crazy. You had Puerto Rico dyeing their hair blonde, even Carlos Beltran, a veteran like him. And the games with the United States against the Dominican and Puerto Rico, that was just such good baseball. So the WBC needs to be promoted more too, because I know plenty of baseball people that don't really pay enough attention to that. And it's tough because spring training is going on at the same time. And obviously it got canceled this year because of COVID, and just another problem of all this going on. But that's for the best stage of baseball right there. Maybe having it every 2 to 3 years even. That's just awesome. It needs to be promoted a little bit more.
I agree. I mean, the World Baseball Classic was a lot of fun. I mean, I remember I would watch the highlights every morning before school because I obviously wouldn't stay up that late. But it was so much fun to see those guys. The Jones robbery at the wall in AT&T Park, amazing. Obviously, that's my home park, so I love that. I will add to that, however, the Olympics is a bigger stage. We know that. We both recognize that. It's obviously a bigger stage to the world. So now that baseball is actually allowed back in the Olympics starting this year because it got postponed for a year, let's let the MLB players play there. Make it an even bigger World Baseball Classic. You want to put the best product every time you have baseball out there. You want to put the best product out there, right? If you're the MLB, you're the head of all baseball in the US, probably the country who can control all this. You want to put your best product out there. So why are you banning? Why are you not having your top athletes out there? Why are you not letting your pro athletes out there? It's just like in the 1980s with the NHL.
Yeah.
Why weren't they out there? I mean, granted, I will say the pro it could lead to a miracle type thing for, I know a team that's already qualified as Team Israel. That's already an underdog story. If they can go and beat the semi-pros of like the DR, Puerto Rico, US, who have great semi-pros, Japan, great semi-pros, great miracle story. But if you can allow the pro athletes, then you're getting a World Baseball Classic on the biggest stage promoted by the Olympics, which is what you want if you're baseball, because that's going to get eyes on your product.
Yeah, I could not agree more. The whole world is watching the Olympics. Let's be real. Even the World Baseball Classic for something that's awesome. The whole world probably isn't watching that. Not everybody is like me, getting up during high school at 5 a.m. to watch a game between Japan and Taiwan. I'm just that much of a baseball nut. But anyway, it's an awesome stage. And as you said, the NHL has had years where they've had no problem pausing their season. So I don't see why it couldn't at least be considered by Major League Baseball, because it would be so much fun to watch the players just have another opportunity to go and play for their country. And unlike the WBC, they don't have to worry about missing spring training for it. If they pause the season for a few weeks, it would just be like an even better all-star break. And to, like you said, the underdog story, that is very cool. With the sad news of Tommy Lasorda passing away last week, we saw the videos coming back of 2000 Olympics in Sydney. He led an underdog Team USA of a bunch of amateurs to win the gold medal. That was such a cool moment, but the potential is just amazing if you include major leaguers in the Olympics.
Tommy Lasorda, great guy. thrived in the Giants-Dodgers rivalry. We'll say that. Hated the man in the rivalry. Great guy though.
If our listeners haven't already, go on to social media and look up some old Tommy Lasorda videos, especially the Kurt Bavacqua incident in the 80s. Highly entertaining. Words I can't repeat here on this podcast, but just give those videos a watch. They will make you laugh. So as we were talking about with Latin America earlier, one more idea I had for that region is get these Winter League games on MLB Network. I don't think people would want to watch for love of the game for the 372nd time instead of a Winter League game that has
every
Vladdy Jr.,
hour on the hour,
Fernando Tatis, all these guys.
Yeah.
It's just it's awesome baseball in that region of the world. So we made it work with Korean baseball during the lockdown. That was on ESPN. Why can't we have this with the Winter Leagues too? There's no reason that MLB can't make that work. There's so much talent, so many top prospects. That has to be something that more people can see rather than like buying a subscription to a Dominican TV service. I mean, granted, sure, you can do that, but it would just be so much better for the game to have that as something for fans to watch in the winter when they might not always pay attention to MLB Network in the winter.
I agree. You just need to get the product out there more, just like we said with the Olympics. It's just getting the product out there, just showing your product more. That's the key. And to add on to that, once you get the product out there, making the product better and they started doing this a lot better, I think in 19 with the mic'd up players more. But I will say, do the mic'd up interviews, but not with the players playing, because I mean, they're trying to play baseball. They're not trying to focus on interviews, asking questions. That's tough as it is. Like you're interviewing Lindor as he's getting ready for the pitch at shortstop. That's tough. We all know how hard baseball is anyway. You can't be doing that to the guy. You're interviewing the manager while he's trying to manage the game. That's tough to the guy. You got to interview. They did this a little better last year during the COVID season. I think it was with the Cardinals. Jack Flaherty was pitching. They interviewed Adam Wainwright. Great. Interview the starters who aren't pitching that day. Those guys are just fans that day, essentially. Interview those guys. They're going to give you the same analytics. They're going to be able to focus more on the interview. And if you want to interview a coach, interview like the bench coach or something. Interview a hitting coach, or I don't know. Just don't interview the guys who are so involved with the game at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. And you see, like, they've done the mic'd up interviews during spring training and the All-Star game, which for exhibitions, I guess it's all right. Even if they're trying to focus, they're not as completely laser focused as they would be during a regular season or postseason game. So, I mean, that's produced some great content the last few years. Hopefully ESPN keeps that up because I believe they're the main ones that have been doing those interviews, and Fox for the All-Star game, of course. But that's great content. And like Freddie Freeman, they had him mic'd up in the 2019 All-Star game, I remember, during his first at-bat. He was like making digs back to the catcher and umpire. It was hilarious, but obviously it's tough to do during a regular season game. So just get mics on the players. The Red Sox did that well this year during the shutdown. Nesson made sure to mic up guys like Chavis and Verdugo, very entertaining characters. So that produced some fun content.
Yeah, no, I'm fine with them miking up during spring training. Like I remember in 18, I think they had Mookie mic'd up during a game, and he's talking them through. That's fine. It's spring training. He's a superstar. He doesn't have to focus.
He had the fly ball where he's
mic him up during that. Interview him. Mic him up. Yeah, he's like playing with his chains and stuff. Mic him. This is what I'll say. Mic him up for everything. Always have the guys mic'd up. Don't have an earpiece in their ear all the time. Earpieces are fine for you can even have them during the World Baseball Classic because that's intense. But I'd probably prefer just mic'd up there because then you can get some raw footage, which you not always can play on TV, of course. But like the All-Star game, have them mic'd up. Then maybe when they're in the field, have them, or even for like a Freddie Freeman type of bet, interview him during the at-bat. That would be awesome. It's the All-Star game. It doesn't mean anything anymore. Just throw in an interview while they're batting. That would be awesome. Talking through a sequence, like what he's looking for with pitches.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome way to grow the game just by hearing what these guys says. And I mean, look, there can be a gentleman's rule between them and the producers. If they say something that they don't think should be broadcast, they obviously won't do that. But just have them like, ragging on the center fielder or making jokes to the catcher. It's great content. As I said with intentional talk, it shows the human side of the game. And with analytics, it seems like we want to make all these players into robots, but we're trying to market the game of baseball. These guys are fun people. They have fun playing the game they love. So we need to capture that. It's like another idea I thought is maybe have some sort of Hard Knocks type show going behind the scenes of spring training. You don't need to film any top secret content, but just like, hey, we're figuring out the schedule for tomorrow. This is what the process looks like. We got the players working out. These are the type of things that they'll do in the weight room. Fly ball drills, mic them up. You've had little segments like Backstage Dodgers or the Red Sox Report. They'll do something similar covering spring training, but just focus on one team. Maybe make a deal with HBO or Showtime to put it on there. Just some great content.
Yeah. Or you can even do multiple because I know they share stadiums in spring training.
Yeah, you're right.
But no, content is what. So the MLB wants to keep their fans, right? And so get rid of all those dumb rules that we hate. But they also want to grow into a new fan base. Well, all these young people, they're all on TikTok. They're all on social media. You know what's on social media is content. HBO, all this Hard Knock stuff, the mic'd up stuff. That's all content. That's YouTube, that's Instagram, that's TikTok, even Twitter, Snapchat could be if you want. Content's the key to growing the game if they want the younger guys. They're not going to watch if they expect a younger kid to watch a full baseball game, it's crazy because they can barely watch a 60-second TikTok.
Yeah.
But if they want to make some cool content videos, like 5-minute videos on YouTube or like some cool highlight packages, like I know for Fairfield, that's what I'm gonna be doing, like 1-minute videos on Instagram, just cool videos for recruits to look at. They don't have more, even if they're interested in the school, they're not gonna look at video for more than a minute really, unless it's a cool hype video. But that's what you got to do. You got to, and I know we talked about this before. They have like 5 Instagrams or whatever MLB does. Each Instagram should be a specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
That way you can have multiple sources of content for each thing. Each person can follow which type of content they like. And then boom, you grow the game even bigger than you thought you would.
I love it. I mean, there's a niche for everybody there. And people like us would probably follow all 5. So do whatever you'd like to do. Spreads the game even more. And like with the Hard Knock stuff, you can have a coach become a folk hero like Bob Wiley with the Browns. When would an offensive line coach ever get that much play? But thanks to Hard Knocks, he became this like super fun character that everybody liked to follow. So yeah, and to add one more point to the social media, this is another thing they kind of experimented with during summer camp, but it's not something that has really grown. Playing around with like a hitter or catcher or umpire camera, something like that you can maybe live stream on Twitter or Instagram. Like say, stand in the box with Michael Chavis against Jacob deGrom. It would just be such a cool opportunity to see like, this is what you see in the batter's box of a major league stadium as a guy throwing 99 sinking. See how that moves. I mean, it's great. It gives perspective that no one can match, and it gives kids incentive to try to play because they're like, okay, I think I can hit that. Let's see what I got.
Yeah, to go off that, I think that's one thing, like a sport like golf, which is also kind of a sport that's looking for those younger viewers. They've done a big thing with that where they're live streaming a lot of their content. They do a horrible with TV, but they live stream a lot of their content on Twitter with like they're like on the bag with Dustin Johnson, on the bag with Brooks Koepka, where it's just a camera on them the entire round, practice round usually, sometimes live round. And you're just hearing the talk between them and the caddy. And it's cool like that. If you can do that for baseball, like just keep a camera, even if it's not like right in the box, like maybe it's just one camera behind the catcher or like on the umpires, like have the umpire wear a GoPro or something. That'd be cool.
Yeah.
The catcher probably won't wear a GoPro, but umpire wear a GoPro, and then you can hear everything. You can hear like the back and forth between the catcher and batter. It's just cool like that. And broadcast it on these social media networks. Great way to grow the game.
Yeah, we've seen something little similar when Fox had those. I don't know if you remember the little cameras in the dirt in front of home plate there. They took them out in like 2014 because of sign stealing concerns, because it was just zoomed right on the catcher. But that was some cool content too. I mean, even put something like that and just turn it around so you can see the pitch coming in. As we've said, there's so many different ways they can go, but we just need to get this idea improved more and more so it can be implemented.
Yeah, when they hiring us.
Yes, sir. That would be a beautiful thing.
And then one more idea I would like to have is, and this goes along kind of with like a lot of the stuff, like I guess A-Rod is already a great example of that, but he's not really who I'm talking about. Tony Romo, the NFL, is a great idea, a great example. He's predicting plays, or he's like saying what team should run. Usually he's right. Sometimes he's wrong, but he should be right because the team sucks. So I'm thinking get a guy like now Veritek's obviously a coach now, but a guy like Veritek, a guy like Tim Lincecum, I think he's retired now. Matt Cain for the Giants, even Schilling, he's crazy, but you could get him. Pedro's a great example.
That would be.
Get a guy like that, put him in the booth, and just have them as the third guy or the second guy as the color commentator, just saying like, all right, this is what's going through the pitcher's mind, or this is what's going through the catcher's mind when calling the signals. And this is what should be thrown in this pitch count, or this is what should be going to this batter, and all that stuff. I know, like, I enjoy when I'm watching a baseball game. That's what like keeps me involved. It's like I'm looking at the sequences, I'm watching, I'm studying, and I'm like, all right, this is the pitch that should be thrown. This is the pitch that could be thrown, and then boom, that's the pitch that's thrown. It's one of those two. There's no other option. It's usually I guess one. I usually say this. All right, it's a 1-2 count. Change up outside to a righty. That's I'm usually right with a lot of the Giants guys because I just know their sequences. But if you can get a guy in the booth like that who can do that, the younger guys, maybe you get like a highlight package of Pedro just calling out pitches. The younger guys will be like, "Whoa, he's a genius. How can we learn more from him?"
It's no different than you can go on YouTube and find Tony Romo predicting. I mean, like you said, and credit where credit is due. This guy right here Colby was Tony Romo during the postseason. He was predicting a lot of things that were going down. MLB had something good like this. Joe Girardi, when he was in the booth in 2019, he was kind of like trying to prove that he knew analytics a little bit to get back into the dugout, but he was giving some really good insight on kind of some projections. So that was cool. Something
That's another
like
guy.
that.
Bruce Bochy, great guy for that. Perfect.
That would be amazing.
He'd be hilarious.
How can you not love Bochy?
But yeah, no, I mean, yeah, I'm gonna brag. Obviously, I knew everything that was like, I knew what was happening in the World Series. You know, they say sign stealing. No, I was telling the Astros which pitches were coming.
Yeah. Oh boy, we got another conspiracy theory on our hands, folks. But yeah, that's something that's an awesome idea. And another thing I will mention is there's a lot of announcers, not all of them, but there's a fair share of them. You'll flip through baseball games, you hear a lot of them complaining about things like pace of play. We need to get these guys to be focusing. You're promoting the game. People don't want to turn the game on and hear you say, "Oh, this pitcher is taking forever. Oh my God, this roster is so thin right now." You need to be making it exciting for people. That's your job as an announcer. That's what Vin Scully did so good for 67 years, with all his stories and everything. He made baseball fun. We can't have announcers, to go back to my Mad Doug Russo example, that are criticizing and complaining about what the game looks like.
Completely agree. I know I think the Red Sox announcers are like good with not complaining. I know the Giants guys are. They got 2 sets of them. Like they were all former players for the Giants, so I know like, yeah. I mean, obviously, pace of play isn't ideal. You don't want to sit there for 3.5 hours. No one does. Like even if you love baseball, you're not gonna want to sit watching. Like I can't do that either. But like when the game's on, I want to watch it. I don't want to hear guys complaining.
Mm-hmm. And that's why, in my opinion, the best booths that MLB has, aside from like the main national guys are those StatCast broadcasts on ESPN too. Kind of circling back to what we talked about a little bit, but those are awesome in terms of making all the advanced analytics a little more easy to digest and kind of having fun with them. I always enjoy listening to those. So hopefully ESPN keeps that up in the coming years.
Yeah, have a fun broadcast, have a StatCast broadcast was like analytic based, have an informative broadcast with players, and then just have your national broadcast. That's 4 or 5, I don't know. It's 4 or 5 different channels. That's how you grow. That's another way to grow the game nationally.
I mean, we had the college football game, the playoff the other night on 5 different channels. There's no reason you can't do that for baseball.
5 different channels and still only got 5 more million viewers than Game 6 of the World Series.
How about that? See, that's the thing. As we said, baseball's already doing a lot well. These are just some ideas that can make it even better and have the numbers go through the roof because it's such an awesome sport that it deserves to have the numbers through the roof.
We know they're never going to compete with the NFL. That's not like we recognize that. We're realists. We want it to.
Especially that's a sport once a week. So let's be real.
Yeah,
they're going to get a lot of viewers.
But I mean, being firmly number 2 in the U.S., that's attainable, I think.
Absolutely.
Not during March Madness, obviously, because that's a whole nother ball game. But aside from March Madness, that's attainable. Like postseason baseball, you can get that. The only thing that really compares is postseason hockey, but that's another discussion.
Yeah, and exactly. And
one more point
I want to throw out. One more point I want to throw out there is expansion. That's a big topic. It was a shame you saw Dave Dombrowski was a part of the Nashville expansion efforts, but he got some intel from Manfred that it probably wasn't going to happen for at least a few more years, once again because of COVID. So, but Nashville,
that's their cover up.
Maybe. Nashville and Portland are 2 cities I would love to see baseball go into, especially with the minor leagues getting shrunk down a little bit. You've had less teams. Expansion is a great way to grow the game. I mean, expansion it's in its name. But you saw this was something MLB did in a response to the 1994 strike, which God forbid that ever happens again. But anyway, expansion would be awesome, and those are 2 cities that they're great markets.
I'd love to see baseball there. I love the Nashville idea because you need another East Coast team. I say instead of Portland, you do Vegas because I think Portland's still too close to the Mariners, and I don't think Oregon and Washington can support 2 or 1 team each. Like, I don't know. I just feel like that's a little too close with all those California teams still. Like Oakland's right there, and Vegas is booming right now. We don't. The fact baseball doesn't have a Vegas team, like, put them. Look, football just got a Vegas team. NHL just got a Vegas team. Let's get baseball a Vegas team now. Perfect. It works out. Just get the booming going.
I mean, it's a great point. I definitely can argue that. I'd love to see Vegas. I feel like 32 is the best number for expansion. So 2 more teams. I think we could agree on Nashville and Vegas. I mean, Portland, there's been a huge movement for it on social media, but you're right. The Pacific Northwest does have the Mariners. Maybe if we get the Mariners into the playoffs every now and then, it could be even better. But I mean, that's a beautiful city and a great ballpark. So you'd love to see them thrive a little more. But really, you expand anywhere, you're doing baseball a great service. And who knows, maybe a team like Tampa Bay might be moving at some point in the next few years. There's been plenty of chatter about that.
Yeah, and I mean, you can even do it like how, like, you don't have to do it expanding. You don't have to do 2 teams at the same time. You can do like what the NHL did, where you do 1 team, then wait 2 years, do another team to like get the revenue flowing and everything, get that team steady, then build up the next team, just with like the expansion drafts and all that, because it's a hassle. We all know that there's money involved. There's a lot of money. We know that. We're business majors. We get all that. So like, let's say you do. I mean, you'd probably have to do Vegas first, just because that's a better economy, I'd say, than Nashville. Just like being able to stabilize as of right now with the boom. So you do Vegas. If I doubt they do it in 2022, maybe 2023, hopefully. And then you get Nashville in 2025, ideally. So then by 2030, you got two competing expansion teams.
That would be awesome. I mean, and there's no reason Vegas can't be a big market team as long as they have a good owner that's willing to spend. They can be right up there with Boston, New York, LA, San Fran. And I could see Nashville as more of a market like St. Louis. Even if they don't always spend the most, it's just an awesome, awesome baseball culture. And it's such a fun town to watch a game in.
Yeah, St. Louis or Milwaukee, I'd say.
Yeah,
It's a
definitely.
good, yeah. I think so. They won't be like Tampa with no fans. They got Vrabel there to endorse them.
Yes, definitely. And plenty of jokes out there this week of the Rays announcing that there would be about like 20% capacity. That's perfectly fine for the Trop because they're used to that.
20%. That's what, 2 people?
A little generous there.
I'd say that's maybe 2 to 10 people showing up. We could
Yeah.
easily get tickets.
For a team that does a lot of winning, it's a shame, and you see why baseball has had these conversations about moving to a new market.
Yeah, live show at Tropicana.
Yeah. One more thing I want to mention before we get out of here is retire number 21 for Roberto Clemente. I've talked about Latin America throughout the whole show, but he's a great hero to those guys. He didn't break any barriers like Jackie Robinson, but he certainly faced a lot of roadblocks, and he did so much good, right down to how he passed away in the plane crash, giving relief to Nicaragua for the hurricane. Get that done. Retire number 21.
I second that. Nothing else you can say about that.
Yes, sir. All right. Did you have anything else to add?
No, I think all right. I think that's it for. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and how we can market and appeal to audiences better, both young, old, middle, all of the above. On next week's episode, we haven't firmly decided what's going to happen. Probably going to continue with some more MLB talk. Probably going to be some trades or signings that happen, because as we know, hot stuff's picking up. We might transition a little bit to some college baseball talk, as we're both moving back into college. Hunter's moving in Sunday. I'm moving in next Saturday. So our seasons are going to be starting up soon. So we'll make sure to get you some of those guys on soon to get some perspective from D1 college baseball players. And make sure to stay tuned on our socials at Beyond the Diamond Podcast on Instagram and Beyond the DIA Pod on Twitter. For tweet us with any questions you have that you want us to talk about, and check our Instagram for memes and updates about our episodes. Thanks, guys.
Yes. Can't wait to get back into college, and the season's coming soon. Go check out on social media some pictures of UConn's first practice this spring at brand new Elliott Ballpark. It is awesome.
Make sure to stay tuned to Stags_baseball, because your boy's gonna be running that page.
There is some special content coming your way, guys. So all of our college baseball fans, stay tuned. Good stuff coming soon.
All right. See you guys.
All right, guys. Thanks for listening.